I never expected the fight of my life would start with a red envelope, but that's how it goes. One minute you're just tending to the same patch of earth your family's been sweating over for generations, and the next, some folks with too much free time and not enough dirt under their nails decide your way of life is a nuisance. That's the punchline: nuisance. My name's Dalton Reed, and this is how I learned that sometimes the only thing standing between tradition and bureaucracy is a stubborn rancher with a stack of old papers and a memory longer than the county road. See, after 22 years in the Marines, I came home to the only place that had ever really made sense, my dad's ranch just outside Maple Hollow, where sunrise is the color of fire and the creek's cold enough to keep you honest. I thought I'd finally found some peace barn doors groaning in the wind hooves on frozen dirt, the simple kind of living that doesn't leave much room for trouble. But peace never lasts, not when there's an HOA creeping up the fence line like a bad rash. At first I didn't care what they were doing, let them have their mailbox regulations and matching shutters. I had cattle to feed, fences to mend. But then came that letter, bright red, formal as a funeral, telling me my livestock, my barn lights, even the sound of my own boots on gravel might be violating their precious environmental standards. I laughed, honest to God I did, because my land was older than their development by decades. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you can't outlaugh a bureaucrat. A week later, Rick from the compliance committee showed up in his best polo, flashing a laminate badge and talking about neighborly cooperation. I've met men like him before, just not usually this close to home guys who speak with a borrowed authority and hope you won't notice the difference. I shut the door on him, but the letters kept coming, each one a little bolder, each thread a little thicker, Then came the drone buzzing over my pasture like a plastic vulture. And when the violation fee hit $500, I started to realize this was more than neighborly concern. Animal control got called, county lines got blurred, and suddenly I was supposed to prove I wasn't running some bootleg cattle operation. I dug up every permit, every survey, every handwritten letter from the state and built a wall of paperwork around myself. But it wasn't just paper these folks escalated. One morning, landscaping crews in HOA polos were clearing brush 6 feet inside my boundary, planting wildflowers, and staking a sign, Maple Hollow Pollinator Zone. I couldn't help but laugh at the audacity, but then I took pictures, logged GPS, and started to realize they weren't just testing me, they were trying to steal my land by inches, you know what I mean? Now the twist in all of this, the unexpected player was Karen Talbot, HOA president, voice, sharp as a cattle prod. And wouldn't you know it, married to a lawyer. She called, she threatened, she claimed legal precedent. But when push came to shove, all she really had was bluster and a dream of my pasture as another row of identical homes. What she didn't know was I had something she'd never understand, a legacy that didn't end at the fence line. I brought in my old buddy Tony, land consultant and wise ass, who told me flat out, you got more standing than they do. Make it hurt to keep going. That was all I needed. I went silent, started tracking their every move, and waited. Then I noticed their soybeans, rows of HOA crops sprawling onto county buffer land that by lease was mine for grazing. That was my leverage. Not a week later, I got hit with another complaint, this time formal with photos, GPS, and anonymous accusations. But the email traced right back to the HOA. I called in favors, gathered documents, mapped every inch. And by the time the county inspector came around, a rancher at heart, clipboard in hand, I had proof. Not only was I clean, but the HOA had encroached 40 feet onto public land under my lease. The county agreed, opened a case, and for a minute there I thought that might be the end. But you know how it is when you corner a bully, they get mean. That's when I decided to do things by the book, literally. I exercised my lease, brought in my second herd, and let 38 head of cattle graze right through the soybeans the HOA had planted illegally. It wasn't just revenge, it was restoration. My cattle eating their way through those rows was nature's way of setting things right. Karen showed up in her lemon yellow blouse, barking accusations, but for the first time, she was the one rattled. "You're ruining everything," she shrieked. I just looked her in the eye and told her the truth. "Do you know how much this land means to me? She didn't have an answer, and I didn't need one. The fight wasn't over, though. I reached out to Leslie Ruiz, a retired property attorney with a mean streak for HOA abuse. Together we built a case not to sue, but to let the law hang over their heads like a storm. We sent cease and desist letters, requested every public record handed evidence to the county, and dropped a quiet tip to the local paper. The next morning, the town was talking HOA soybeans grown on borrowed land. They didn't print my name, but everyone knew. Karen and her board came crawling down the trail, all threats and posturing, but the wind had changed. I laid out my terms: no more citations, no more drones, stay off my land. If not, I'd let the DA and every news station in 3 counties know how the HOA spent their dues. They slunk away, and for the first time in months, the quiet felt earned. But of course, Karen wasn't finished. She called the sheriff again. Deputy Stanton, a good man with better things to do, showed up, read the lease, and told her flat, "Mr. Reed's within his rights. The law's not on your side." That hit harder than any fine ever could. The news kept spreading. The town's paper ran my name picture and all me leaning on the fence, cattle behind lease under my arm. Folks started calling neighbors business owners, even board members who'd once stood behind Karen. Apologies, offers of support, promises to vote for accountability. By the end of the week, Karen was out. Her resignation leaked in an email, and suddenly the neighborhood was peppered with lawn signs, "End HOA abuse." The county cleared the fields, handed down fines, and made it clear that from now on, the ranch would be left in peace so long as I did what I'd always done: respect the land. I never wanted to be a symbol. But the mayor himself stopped by, asked if I'd serve on the land use board, said they needed someone who knew what dirt felt like. I showed up to my first meeting in boots, not slacks. Land remembers who respects it, I told them. They didn't clap, but they listened. Karen moved away. Her house sold quietly. The new HOA president wrote me a letter, handwritten, polite, promising no more trouble. That was all I ever wanted. My dog Tank slowing down the cattle are fatter than ever, and sometimes just before sunrise I walk the line and feel my father's presence in the wind. Legacy, not victory. Roots, not rage. And if you're wondering where it all lands, let's just say when a bully loses power, what's left isn't just relief, it's dignity. That's how you win against folks who try to write you out of your own story. You don't fight them with anger. You fight them with roots, with respect, with proof that land isn't just a patch of earth, it's memory, promise, and peace if you're willing to stand your ground. So now I want to hear from you. Where do you stand when the rules get twisted? When someone with a badge and a clipboard decides your way of life doesn't fit their narrative? Does law always mean justice, or does it take a community willing to push back? Drop your thoughts below. I'll be here riding fence at dawn, making sure the story doesn't end the way they wrote it.